unique New York.
I made Ryan start rolling for this because apparently these are the fucking vocal exercises he does before the podcast.
The Flaming Torch was denied a bank loan.
Oh, how does that even help? You need to do the frigatives.
I'm sorry, what?
The frigatives.
I don't think you're allowed to say that anymore.
Cue the music.
Hello and welcome back to the Comic Literate Podcast, where we comically and literally review comics. I'm Ryan, also known as Comic Stan. I love comic books, and my co-host loves regular books, so I make him read the comic books. And this week I made him read Batman: The Dying City. Yeah, it's fine. And with me, as always, my aforementioned nocturnal co-host is Jamie.
Ryan, we've both had such shit weeks.
Yes. Without getting into too much details, we have had eventful weeks that I will not disclose any of the details of because I'm an extremely private person. Don't try and find me in real life. I will attack you. But we've been through the ring in the past 7 days. And fuck Heathrow.
Fuck Heathrow. Fuck Heathrow and fuck Weisman.
Yeah. This is turning into one of those podcasts where we just call people out.
Yeah, who else should we call out?
Who else has pissed me off?
Elon Musk? Fuck Elon Musk, man.
I feel like that's too easy one, though. That's like during the war being like, that Hitler bloke, I actually don't like him. Not that I'm saying Elon Musk is Hitler, or maybe I am, who knows?
I think that was no. Unfortunately, it's unfair to compare Elon Musk to the Nazis because the Nazis had better fashion sense.
I was just thinking the fashion sense, yeah. And you're right. You're right. Hugo Boss might have been an evil businessman, but he knew fashion.
It's so unfortunate that those SS uniforms fuck.
And speaking of megalomaniac billionaire types, we're talking about Batman.
We're talking about Batman. Who fucking wrote it? This
was written by podcast favorite
Chip Zdarsky. Chip fucking Zdarsky wrote this.
Who we've really enjoyed his preview. I know I have. I've banged on about his Daredevil run.
Did you make me read this so I would have to have a negative opinion about Chip Zdarsky?
I mean, that's not the reason. I was interested to see what I thought the discussion of his work on this particular title would be interesting. We previously have enjoyed specifically Public Domain.
Yeah, Public Domain was good.
Yep. So we know he's capable of very good writing at a high level, and he does it often and a lot. Maybe a clue to how we're thinking about this comic.
This was
week.
all right.
It was fine, yes. And artwork also by Jorge Jiménez and Tony S. Daniel. The artwork, I mean, starting with the eye, just broad thoughts. You thought it was fine.
It was all right.
I thought was interesting. We'll touch on broad thoughts for starting with the arting. I thought it was interesting to do this for two reasons. One, it came out right now.
Oh, is this recent?
Yes, this is as modern a Batman comic as you can get.
But it looks like Adam West Batman with the grey...
with the smaller ears.
The smaller ears and the grey spandex.
Yeah, I think that's just a stylistic choice.
I like this Batman.
He's a good-looking Batman.
He's a very handsome Bruce Wayne.
He's always,
Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, he's no Dick Grayson. Come on.
Yeah, well, no, but nobody...
Who is?
I don't even know if Dick Grayson can live up to the expectations I have of Dick Grayson these days.
No, you've waifued him in your head so hard.
Yeah, I'm like Gatsby looking out over the bay at the green light.
It's almost to the point where if Dick Grayson heard you talking about him, this fictional character, I mean,
he'd
obviously,
be a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, he'd be like, you're putting me on a pedestal and that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, because he's such a cool dude. He's humble.
He's like, calm down.
But no, so
here's the reason why. One, it's modern. That's the main reason.
Yeah.
Two, you said something last week when we did Fantastic Four from the 60s.
Yeah.
You described it as an enjoyable thing to just consume your time that was better than scrolling a phone or social media or something, right? So I thought, and my rebuttal to that was, that's most comics, and especially modern comics. But there's always been those comics around.
I think this was better than that.
Okay.
Well, I think this affords the reader more to think about than that. I think there are a few key meditations on Batman that John Green and Hank Green arrived at a few years ago.
I think a lot of writers have been doing that kind of stuff, addressing that kind of stuff with their stories. I think it's a bit old hat now for me, but...
Notably, that crime isn't created by evil, it's systemic disenfranchisement. to quote Hank Green. And this really sort of explores that, because Batman is now interested in giving people shit the American government isn't.
Yes.
Like free healthcare, affordable housing, job opportunities. And the incredible thing is that the Americans, the characters...
What does he get for it?
The characters in this react the same way that the Americans do when you try and give them free healthcare, access to affordable accommodation, and access to employment, which is they call him a fucking commie and distrust him.
Yes.
And I thought that was a really interesting response to the American psyche. And for that, I give it a pass. I give it a thumbs up just for that.
Look, if we were doing a thumbs up or thumbs down binary rating system, then yes, this would get a thumbs up for me. But because we're such pretentious intellectuals who talk about children's comic books in such a pretentious way,
go on.
There's a grey area that I think that we'll be talking about a lot.
Is there a grey area in Batman?
Yes, chum. I'm doing Adam West.
You're doing Adam West while I'm doing what's his face?
Christian Bale.
Oh man, do you know I just rewatched The Big Short?
It's one of the best films of all time,
dude. So Christian Bale's performance is always phenomenal in everything. Like Christian Bale's been in some bad movies.
Speaking of some Batman alum actors, when he did Vice, which was about the George Bush vice president, who I can't... Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
The one who got shot, right? With a shotgun?
No, he shot someone, and the person he shot apologized. Yeah. So it was a duck hunting accident or whatever. But anyway,
all right. Accident.
He did that film Vice, and he put on a shitload of weight, because that's what Christian Bale does.
Yeah.
Extreme body changes. I think that was the last one. I think he was genuinely like, I can't do this again.
Yeah, well, because it wasn't that quite hot off the back of The Machinist.
No, this was Dark Knight was straight after The Machinist. So if you look at those,
yeah, because he was emaciated and then he was ripped.
Yeah, totally natural, apparently. But anyway,
no, right.
But
this
we're not making accusations. We're not calling out Christian Bale.
No, because I would never call out Christian Bale because he is a god among men. However,
and Welsh.
No, fuck off. I thought he was English.
Yeah, you and everyone else, I think.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Very Welsh.
Wow, he's Welsh. He likes daffodils and sheep.
You know what? Now that you've questioned me, I'm going to double check.
You're going to
say what you're going to say. Or have you forgotten now?
No, the superhero physiques.
Yes.
Right? Those physiques, I'm sorry. The only one of them that I will believe isn't juicing is Jason Momoa. Because he is just a tower of a human being.
First question when you type Christian Bale is Christian Bale English or Welsh?
And he is.
He was born in Wales, but his parents were English. And he considers himself English, not Welsh.
Oh,
but he's Welsh. He's
no,
Welsh.
I get it. He was born in Wales. But that's interesting when you get into like those kind of British identities. And we don't have space for that on the podcast.
We don't have space for that, yes.
We don't have space for a discussion of like British versus English, Irish, Scottish, and Welsh identities. Like we just don't.
But the funny thing I was going to say
Northern Irish,
was,
by the way, I meant Northern Irish.
Yeah. But the bit I was going to say was he spoke after he did Vice and he put on all the weight. He spoke to what's his name? Gary? No, God damn it,
Gary Glitter.
No, thank God, no.
Gary Oldman.
Yes, Gary Oldman.
How the fuck did I get it right on the second go round?
Gary, Batman actors, you got it. Dark Knight. He's Jim Gordon in that one. So Gary Oldman.
Shit, Gary Oldman's in the Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's why you got it. So he spoke to Gary Oldman, who had just played Churchill in whatever film that was.
Right.
And he looks like Churchill. And apparently Christian Bale was like, because they'd worked together before. He was like, how'd you do with putting on all that weight? Like, cause you were quite big in that film. Like, how'd you do that? Gary Oldman was like, it's fucking prosthetics, you nut. Like, we put prosthetics on. We don't do what you do.
Not all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't fake skinny. So I get it for The Machinist. Like, he had to just get down to that weight.
I mean, I don't think he needed to do it for that. I think he chose to do it for that.
But to do that role justice, you needed to get real big skinny. Like, he needed to be emaciated for it. But there are good fat prosthetics. You can just, like... I mean, because I imagine the discomfort speaking as a fat person, being fat isn't that comfortable. I would imagine that the discomfort of going from being like a healthy weight to being fat for a bit would be greater than the discomfort of just sitting in a makeup chair for a couple of hours every morning.
Exactly, yes. And prosthetics have come a long way. Like, look at Colin Farrell in The Penguin. Like,
right.
So, with this is one of the times where our tangents have remained Batman adjacent. Like, it's always Batman adjacent.
I think if today, because the comic book is okay.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I don't have a lot to say about it. So if we can just kind of, even if we venture today, because I'm going to do it a lot, if we can...
You on this podcast?
Right, fuck off. I'm fucking here. I'm a bit stressed out. Is it coming across, do you think? Is the audience getting it?
I mean, I could tell the audience he's still smiling, but he's smiling in that way where it's like he could snap at any moment as well. So make of that what you will.
Ryan is sitting a little further away from me than usual, I must admit.
Bring the microphone arm in between us just in case.
I do have that crazed look in my eyes.
Yes.
Providing we can keep the conversation sort of Batman adjacent like we have been, I think we've done a good job today.
Yeah, just keep bringing it back to Batman in whatever way.
Starting with the motherfucking arting.
Yeah, I did not make many notes on the art. In fact, I mean, I didn't even make the note which I normally make, which was DC house style.
There were some bits where they nailed the basics that I would like to celebrate for a moment.
Sure.
Notably, every time Batman has a little scrappy scrap.
Yep, they looked good.
But
they were also always like smaller. They were always in small panels.
Distinct lack of splash panels here.
Yes.
And again, we're jumping into this like issue 150 something, aren't we?
Yeah, so the Dying City, I don't have the exact issues. You continue, I'll get the issue numbers in front of me.
And so I think they nailed the basics where like motion and posing and combat are concerned. And to be honest with you, for me at this point with this kind of comic, if that shit's largely there, everything else can just kind of be. There was minimal jank.
Yeah, no, I did notice any.
Yeah, this is it. I didn't notice any at all. And I did really like Nigma, the
Riddler.
The Riddler's name.
Yes. Edward Nigma.
Edward Nigma. I liked the way that he looked. He looked good.
Yeah, that's kind of his modern look now, but the Riddler's changed so much.
Do you know what he reminded me of? He reminded me of Rorschach out of The Mask.
Yeah, I mean...
Kind of pale and ginger.
Yeah. So, yeah, art-wise, it was mostly fine. Like, we've had a recent revelation when talking about comic book art where readability is a big thing.
And it was very readable.
It was very readable. I thought it was, and this is maybe panel layouts. It might be scripting, panel layout, art, I don't know. It was all quite rushed. I don't know if that's what was on the page that needed to be translated or the panel layout or whatever. But so many pages, I was like, can we let this rest a little longer, like this panel? And everything felt like the fights were like you say, the fights were good, but they were all in smaller panels, so we couldn't enjoy them as much.
None of them lasted more than a page.
Yep, exactly. There was a page of like loads of dialogue, which wasn't a drag to read, but looking at any page, it felt like a lot of dialogue on any kind of given page.
I think my favourite panel overall was the scene where Batman fights those coppers.
Yeah, I think that happened a few times, but they were good when they happened.
Yeah. So I think we can probably move on from the art now.
There was one bit of art that I did take a picture of. It's the one part that I was like, that's really good. There's really good visual storytelling, and I will show you here, just to remind you. It's the bit where he's got some protesters.
I liked that one too.
And Bruce is very calm, very kind of, like just addressing the situation, like these protests, whatever. Then one of the protesters gets a bit angry at a kid at this medical place that they're protesting at, and suddenly the Batman comes out of Bruce Wayne for a second, and his face literally almost looks like a demon face in like shadow for a second.
Grabs him by the neck, he throttles him, doesn't he?
Exactly. And I thought great visual storytelling, because you're using light and shadow to basically like, this is how unhinged he is in this brief second because he's enraged by what's happening to this girl.
Yeah.
So that was one part I thought, that's really good. Most of the art was just fine and readable. It did the job, very serviceable, did not inspire me at all, I think.
I would agree with you. It was very legible. I liked the character designs. I really liked the Batman here. And I know this is bread and butter stuff.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's not the first dude to draw fucking Batman, is he?
Yeah, but you do get other Batmans. There's like long-eared Batmans sometimes. There's
not as big a fan of long-eared Batman.
No, I mean, it depends. I mean, Absolute Batman has got those long ears, and I was a bit like, and then he pulls one out with a blade, and I was like, that's cool, actually. I like that now.
So,
story-wise, I'll say what we didn't get around to when we were doing Broad Thoughts.
Yes, continue.
You were saying about it does a lot of like modern political climate, modern culture stuff. It incorporates it kind of well into the story. What I found there was, and I get this a lot, like modern superhero comics at any point in time are always trying to reflect what's going on in the world, right? That's modern media in fiction, right? What I found with this and what a lot of this kind of stuff does is it mentions it includes it in the story, but it never actually says anything about it.
Yes.
At best, the messaging here is, I mean,
Americans don't want healthcare.
It does too many things. That's what I kind of found.
Yeah.
Like, and it's very obvious stuff if you're on, I mean, in these days, if you're on this side of the political aisle, because the aisle keeps bloody moving every few years. But all this stuff is like, it's billionaire oligarchs, and it's surveillance, and it's tech companies getting too powerful, and it's crypto coins, and it's Russian influence, and it's police corruption. Like, I'm just listing all the things it does, and it doesn't actually say anything about any one of those topics.
I think what's really interesting is that when comic books started doing this stuff, like 10, 15 years ago, it was...
I mean, to be fair, Captain America punching Hitler, like that's... You could argue for longer.
But particularly when we get into the sort of, corporate oligarchy and corrupt politics and that kind of stuff, that was all quite scary 10, 15 years ago when that stuff was a little less overt. But because now it is happening so overtly and so obviously in our culture, actually... I don't necessarily want to read a story that's throwing it in my face, because what I'm going to do when I'm done reading this comic book is scroll through my phone and see more of the fucking same.
Yeah. And also, now we're talking about the story, we're doing issues 152 to 157. They came out literally like the past few months. I think what's important to distinguish, interestingly, is these would have been written like maybe even a year ago, like the time it takes to plan this kind of series and then get it all, storyboarded and drawn up and everything. So this was all drawn up when it was like, oh, billionaires are a bit too powerful, and now it's being released like, oh shit,
billionaires are a bit too powerful.
Give me bloody Edward Nygma any day. Like, is he smarter about it?
Yeah.
But yeah.
So in terms of the way the story is presented, because Chip Zdarsky, in my experience, writes phenomenal dialogue. I mean, Eisner Award-winning dialogue.
Yep.
Chip Zdarsky's won an Eisner, hasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. I will bring up just which one specifically, but he won one for a great comic, which I really enjoyed, a title called Sex Criminals, which he wrote with...
you keep telling me about this.
Which he wrote with one Matt Fraction, who is also a fantastic writer as well.
Did he get anything for public domain?
Oh, yeah, 2023 Best New Series, Public Domain.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
so the dialogue here is excellent within the confines of what it is. So it's really good for a Big Two superhero comic, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But it lacks the warmth of other stuff that I've read by Zdarsky.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a passion project as much as his other stuff we've read by him does.
Yeah, it lacks the warmth that his other writing has, and that's annoying for me. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about either last week or a couple of weeks before, which is when we did Nice House
by the Sea,
where go into something with by Zdarsky expecting this really naturalistic sort of gleaming dialogue, and it's not bad by any stretch. It's just not as good as I know he can do.
Yeah. And I think there's again, one of the reasons why doing this is because I think there's a whole question regards to really great writers doing projects that are within stricter confines.
Yeah.
We know he's capable of brilliant stuff. And I would speculate, I'd put money on this Batman title because it's one of the most profitable, successful, long-running series and characters. Is probably the most studio or publisher micromanaged title that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Because I am a firm believer that limitation is the mother of all invention. And so my sort of philosophy on these things would suggest that going into something like this with all of the limitations they have would force one to do some of their best work. But unfortunately, every time we approach a big name title by one of the big two, there are these niggles and there are these things that I think are holding it back from being something really special.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because there is such a glut of Batman, Superman, Spider-Man at the moment that there is room for something really good that isn't necessarily profitable. And what I don't think the big two really realise is that by giving a writer like Chip Zdarsky, he would have been the perfect writer to have said, fuck it, have Batman, whatever the fuck you want with it.
Well, what's interesting is, so there's a bit of history that I think is, I'm going to try and quickly go over in broad strokes to kind of say where we are now. So when you say, let's get an acclaimed writer and give them carte blanche and do whatever they want, I think they probably done it a couple times. There's at least one time that I particularly remember they did it, and it was at the beginning of this series.
Oh, who was it?
It was Tom King.
Right. Didn't he fuck it up?
I don't think he fucked up. I think I think his writing style is people either love it or hate it. I think he is a marmite of comic book writers. I have talked a lot on this podcast how I'm a huge Tom King fan. I love his writing. I love his writing style.
I mean, we come back to it so frequently. I really liked his Supergirl.
I loved his Supergirl.
What else have we done?
Human Target is one of my favorite comic books of all time.
We both really liked Human Target.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that I've read by him that I haven't liked as much, isn't there?
Yeah. His Wonder Woman was, we had criticisms of it.
Yeah.
I think it was the best Wonder Woman comic I've read, but I haven't read enough Wonder Woman to really say that, confidently. But anyway, the point is, the start of this run was Tom King being given carte blanche to do whatever he wanted, right? I believe so, because one, he was doing it quite differently. Like, I really enjoyed his Batman run when he was doing it. I thought it was some of the better superhero comic book writing coming out at the time. And then fans fans weren't happy with the general style of it. They weren't happy with some of the choices that he made in this. There was a whole thing with Batman and Catwoman almost getting married and then not getting married and then getting married later, possibly after his run. Yeah. And I think people are kind of like, oh, what's he doing? Like, he's just kind of messing around. I, again, don't know, but I would speculate. I think that, again, there was publisher stuff. But this way, he was building up this Batman-Catwoman marriage.
Yeah.
And then when it came to it, Catwoman was like, if we do this, you're going to be happy. And you not being happy is what makes you a good Batman, so I would be depriving the world of Batman. And everyone was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
No, this is the dumbest reason to not do this. Like, on the day they were meant to get married. Yeah. Like, it was bullshit. And if Tom King was the one who was like, this is what I want to do, I would say, that's bad. Yeah. You've done good up until now, but that's bad. What I would speculate is that DC were like, Batman getting married, is that going to be, is that a bit boring? Or like, he won't be able to like do as much, like maybe, that, again, that's very...
He won't be able to go for beers with his friends on Friday anymore.
With Nightwing.
Like, what is Dick Grayson going to do if Batman can't go for beers?
Bruce, come on, we'll go for beers. Like, I can't, my the old ball and chain. She wants to stay in.
And then he's just like, but no, she's going to be out doing burglaries. And he's like, exactly.
Stop her from doing that. Yeah, so that, or again.
It's like that marriage would have been a Mr. and Mrs. Smith deal.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're married now. Or I don't know if they've split up again since then, but they were married for a point, and it was great. Like, because they're meant for each other. They're the same kind of person,
It's
like they're
something different. And so,
exactly. Prime example, right? In that Tom King run, this is a minute example of prime example.
Is it the prime example?
It's the weekly prime example, one of 10 this week.
Yeah.
So there was a page where I remember where him and Bane are having this conversation because he finds out Bane's doing all this bollocks.
Bane's
in the
also
right?
fucking Catwoman.
No, luckily not. I mean, he does like... I was going to say, he does like breaking backs. But anyway... There's a page in this, and this is classic Tom King. It was one of those 2x3
Yeah.
And it was them they're having this meeting, they sit down, and before the first thing they say, Bane just over 3 panels takes off his mask and says, no masks. And Batman, I think, either he had his mask on or he had it off already and puts it on or something. But it's a whole page dedicated to them just either taking off or putting on their masks and just saying, no masks. At the bottom. That was an entire page. Imagine doing this in this comic. Like, how far away that is from the speed and pace of everything we're getting in this.
It's tonally so different, isn't it?
I enjoy that writing style.
Yeah.
I can see why someone who doesn't enjoy that would be like, I don't know. So, since Tom King, there's been writers come and go. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but there was a running thing with great writers. Another prime example was someone who had Batman for a bit, was James Tynion IV.
Yeah, he was very good.
Yeah.
My question to you at this point...
But Tynion is part of that thing of great writers, and then they get Batman, and then they shit the bed. Like, that's just this common running thing.
My question is, and I think this is on topic, I don't think this is a, tangent or whatever. What are people going to Batman for? Why?
For Batman?
But what defines a good Batman run? Is it the brooding? Is it the anti-hero thing? Is it the grey areas? Like, what for you defines a good Batman run?
This is the thing. I enjoy the Tom King run. So for me, what I enjoy is people shaking things up and re-examining the character and stuff like that. The problem ultimately is it's that fandom of certain fandoms. A lot of fandoms have these sects of the fandoms where they basically say, we want it different, but not like that.
Yes.
That's the ultimate problem.
And I think, honestly, the fandoms that have grown up around the big, prominent superhero characters are probably the worst for.
Yeah.
I can't think of an area in media where people are as upset with the creators, but also as desperate for change as comic book fans are. In fact, there is but one, and it's people who play Pokemon games.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what I've read a good chunk of Batman recently with you and for this podcast. What we've done a bunch of Batman from different eras now.
Yes.
I feel like I've read a good sample size of Batman now to be able to confidently say that it is all very much of a muchness.
Yeah, and the problem is, you're saying about the different mediums and stuff, I think the problem inherently is the comic books just keep going.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. When you've got films and TV and stuff like that, you make a thing, whether it be a film or a series or an album or whatever, and then you put it out there, and then you get a response. And normally it is that, sales declined, viewership went down, blah, blah, blah. Let's shake things up a bit. But the problem here is you've got a large section of the fan base, again, who are like, well, we want different, but any changes you make, we're going to complain about.
Yes.
And any medium, if you keep it the same, just get stagnant after a while.
Yeah.
I mean, even in this comic, and I think we should kind of pivot to the story of the comic, but one of the parts here is Jim Gordon is a private eye. He's not the commissioner. In this story alone, we've got him being like, maybe I should go back to the Force. So already I'm seeing that going, pivoting back to the status quo again. But like when I was reading this series earlier, like last year, Bruce Wayne wasn't rich. Now he's rich again. And he mentions it here. He's like, I was poor recently. And that is literally mentioned in it.
I think comic books suffer from entropy, whereby everything will return to its natural state of inertia.
But then you get that, like right now, modern age, you've got Marvel and DC both trying to have their cake and eat it too with their alternate universes.
Yeah, and that for me has been the saving grace of Big Two. I don't think...
A lot of people are saying that.
I think I would be at a point where I'd be saying to you, I think we need to change the focus of this podcast quite drastically if there wasn't those little pockets of exciting stuff happening in the Big Two.
Yes.
But the issue is that they're not willing to commit to that in a meaningful way. So it's sidelined, and the other ran stuff, even though the Ultimates is kind of the big thing happening in the Marvel Universe at the moment, everything else is still happening business as usual elsewhere, isn't it? And I'm struggling to invest in the Ultimates because I know ultimately it is going to be short-lived.
I mean, we don't know. The previous Ultimate Universe went on for several years.
But in the grand scheme of comic books and the duration of time they run in, that is but a flash in the pan.
But you also had some characters stay on for their popularity. It's up in the air.
But then they just kind of fall victim to the same old bullshit. And Miles Morales now is no more exciting than Peter Parker, and he was one of the most exciting things to happen in comic books for about 20 years.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, maybe things go stale and stagnant, and then you just got to wait for the next big thing or the next good thing at the very least. But yeah.
And again, I suppose I think maybe actually it's too much for us as consumers to ask of a media that is as self-perpetuating as this, for it always to be exciting, for it always to be pushing new boundaries, because it is so broad now that I don't even know which boundaries I want pushed. Yeah. I don't know which boundaries you would need to push on a Batman story to make it feel fresh and compelling and exciting.
And even like the story and the content and everything of the characters, like that's one thing, which we will get to and talk about in a minute. But the other thing is also just the style and presentation of it. Like I said, Chip Zdarsky's a great writer, and when he has the time, he's really detailed and rich and deep. But this was just bang, 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 like monologue, like dialogue, fight scene. Like it was too much.
We see glimmers of his dry wit come through here.
Yeah.
There are moments where because Chip Zdarsky has a fantastic dry wit as a writer.
He's hilarious.
He's so witty, and we see glimmers of that through this.
Yeah.
It's kind of peppered through it, but it's not. It's nowhere near as prevalent as in his own work. And I hate to call this like not his own work, but it's not. But like for me to say that this doesn't feel like original work, does that make sense to you?
Writing within confines. I don't think, to be honest, right? And the other bit of history I was going to get at with this series is Chip Zdarsky's been doing this for, I think, a couple years, like on this run, right? It started in 2016, so this is how long
it's nearly a decade old.
Exactly. So Chip, when he first started it, he did have this grand plan, which I kind of did see play out over this kind of 3-story arc thing. The biggest part was this, and he tried to make this enemy called Failsafe, right?
Yeah.
And the point of Failsafe was there was a robot made by Batman to stop Batman if he ever got out of line, right? And that like concept, like, and I can tell he was trying to do this, like, getting into the heart of what is Batman and, that kind of thing, and like enforcing the rules, but it's like lawful evil and that kind of topic and stuff. It was actually tied into, you remember we read that Penguin thing by Tom King, where Penguin's like, oh, people think I'm dead in Gotham. That was people thought Batman killed the Penguin. Right. And that's what activated this failsafe thing.
Right.
But then it got into all this like split personality stuff within Batman, and like how we learned from someone before of like creating a new personality within your head, and it got into all this bollocks where it like got too far for me for Batman, which again, man dressed as a billionaire dressed as a bat and fights crime. It wasn't grounded enough for Batman, in my opinion. But it got into all that bollocks, and then he tried to do the stuff with Joker, and there was this whole thing with the 3 Jokers, which that's a podcast episode in itself.
Yeah.
But basically, it's a thing that DC did years ago. They said, by the way, there's 3 Jokers. And then they went, oh shit, how do we do this?
How do we manage that?
Yeah. So Chip tried to give them a way to do it in this run. He was like, the Joker's got these other personalities, like Batman has.
Yeah.
And there's 3 of them, and that's why there's 3 blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was all quite lofty. It was a swing and a miss. Right. But it was a noble failure of a series.
And I can respect that.
And all that stuff was, I thought, more passion-filled than this. I think Chip, it's already announced that someone else is taking over in a few months or so.
Which means that he's at a point in this run now where he can't do anything interesting. He has to
He's got to wrap it up.
Pardon?
He's got to wrap it up.
Well,
that's what he's doing.
Or he has to idle. He just has to idle while he's writing these issues.
Yeah.
And not create new problems for the next guy to deal with, right?
Yeah. It's clean slate stuff. Like that's for the next writer. That's basically what happens.
Which is why he's now sowing the seeds for the status quo to return.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Commissioner Gordon's like, I should return to the Force, because the next guy's probably like, well, I need Commissioner Gordon to be in the Force for my story to work.
Yeah.
And I suppose we then get into the differences between this medium and TV, because it's really common for lots of different writers to pick up and put down bits of a TV show. But I think authorial voice is more important in this because it is a written medium.
Yeah, and no TV show has as set in stone a status quo than comic books that have been running for decades.
Yeah.
Like Batman and Spider-Man are the two ones where you could say, what's their deal? What happens? And people who don't read comics, who barely watch the films, they can be like, well, Bruce Wayne's a billionaire and he's Batman, and there's Jim Gordon, he's in the thing, and then Lucius Fox, he's Morgan Freeman, and sometimes there's Robin. Like that status quo, people can tell you that.
Yeah.
And no other medium has that where they have to keep returning to that.
Yeah.
Tell you what, speaking of status quo breaking stuff, one thing that Tom King did in his run that has remained this long is he killed Alfred.
Right, okay.
Yeah, Bane bloody snapped his neck in front of Robin. And apart from one little story...
Which Robin was it?
Damien.
Yeah, nowhere near as good.
It wasn't the Robin. But yeah, that they've remained. That they've kept that the same. There was one little story where he was back for a bit, and I don't know if it actually was him or not because I didn't bother read it. It was boring, and I didn't finish it.
Yeah,
but he's dead still, as far as we know. He's not in the story. Like that's something.
Because I know you're keen to get onto the comic.
Yeah, there's not like the story. Like it's more like what they try to do with it.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, it's not particularly interesting to talk about. That's the issue. That's the issue I'm having.
What I find interesting about the story is, again, like I kind of said at the top, the attempt to bring in these social issues and not do anything with them. Like, so first example of many, none of them prime. This one's just first. It's not prime.
Yeah.
Edward Nygma is a tech oligarch who got rich from a cryptocurrency meme coin, essentially. Yeah. So again, it's taking stuff from the real world that is part of the modern news, it's just assigning them to an existing character.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, because the thing about the Riddler, a complaint about the Riddler for the longest time is like, well, he's a genius. Why doesn't he just be rich?
Yeah.
Instead of being a Batman villain.
Yeah.
And then
they gave it to us, and we're like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, and then he just goes back to it. Like, spoilers for all this. Probably should. Nah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, at the end, he's like, actually, I do want to be a villain again. It's like, oh, okay, so piss all that off then.
Yeah.
And even just earlier in this series, which I read as well, is someone beat the shit out of Riddler, another villain, and basically like took the piss out of him for exactly that reason. He was like, you could be a bloody CEO billionaire, but you're so consumed with just trying to prove you're better than this one other person that you ruin your life over, basically.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of the story, it's like, I had a revelation because of this. And oh, no, I'm actually still evil.
Yeah.
And it's like, like that would have been far more interesting for him to be the billionaire who's not doing the scheming villainy stuff, but is doing bad stuff. Like, so in the story, he tries to take Wayne Enterprises, right? I think it would have been far more interesting for him to be doing this legal acquisition or attempting this legal hostile takeover of Wayne Enterprises, Batman's business and his legacy and everything. And he's like, Batman's like, I can't punch anyone to stop this. Like,
I have to Bruce Wayne it. I have to be Bruce Wayne here.
And Zdarsky knows that's interesting.
Yes.
But again, I think from higher up, or I think he's just literally writing a script that he knows will get okayed and saying, here you go. It's a bit of something interesting, but ultimately it's the same.
And he does the Mad Men writing about the corporate world thing really fucking well.
Exactly, yeah.
He did a whole comic about it, and it was fabulous.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we know he has it in him, and I think you're absolutely right. The publishers, much like you, the only reasonable explanation I have for that U-turn in the story is the publishers needing the Riddler to be the Riddler, right? Because it's a Batman comic and it needs a bad guy.
Yeah, that's what literally I was going to say. It was like, what's the Riddler's scheme for this story? Like, how is he going to get bested in the end?
One question I do have for you, and this is just like a superhero thing.
Before that question, all I say is, I think you could have also made something more interesting about the Riddler going back to villainy.
Yeah.
That could have been interesting in itself as well.
Because he doesn't have a strong motivation to do that. He just sort of, there's a point where he puts a mask on and you're like, oh, okay, cool, he's the Riddler again.
Or even for someone else to hold the mirror up to him and be like, you had it all.
Yeah.
And you still couldn't resist. Like, you're addicted to trying to best Batman and your life is a detriment for it. Like, that would have been interesting. It would have been interesting if he didn't do it.
Yeah.
This was the most boring route of, he's gone back and we're not addressing it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what was your question?
The other superhero. The guy who looks like Captain America.
Yes, yeah.
Who the fuck is that?
He was new for this story.
Right, okay, that's why I don't recognize him. Cool. Not interesting.
And he's revealed to be, again, spoilers for this comic, he's revealed to be a previous existing character called KG Beast.
Yeah, who's that?
He's just a generic mercenary type
Russian?
Russian fighting character. Yeah, basically. Cool. He's meant to be one of the best fighters in the world.
Yeah.
But again,
well, Batman makes a whole thing out of that.
I'm fighting one of the best fighters in the world.
Barely any time dedicated to it. And Batman has to arrive on a fucking jet falling out of the sky, which he had to blow the wings off to steer it. And also, that's how this series started in 2016. First issue, really? Batman has to steer a plane into the... I was like, I'm getting fucking deja vu. But yeah, he comes in and I'm like, I know this fight's going to happen. And I'm like, all right, maybe this is the fight we're building up to. And maybe it's something cool. Like maybe that'll be like a kind of climactic final fight. It's like 3 pages.
Yeah.
And
Less than.
Batman's just like, you're good. And on your best day, you could beat me, but fuck you. Like... I was like, that's...
But he doesn't even say fuck you because it does the other thing, doesn't it, Ryan?
I didn't notice, but yeah.
Where they put random lengths of hashes and question marks in instead of swearing in such a way that I can't tell which fucking swear word they're using, and it infuriates me. I
tell you what was nice, and I think this was a Chip Zdarsky, like him trying to get something decent in here.
Yeah.
Barely any narration or monologue.
There's a little bit.
Yeah, a little, but for a big 2 mainline
particularly
comic,
for a Batman, because they like it in Batman, don't they?
But every superhero comic, again, the example the hypothetical example I constantly use is that, things have been really tough right now since I beat that dragon, blah, blah, blah. But
and there's moments where he's like, and I'm the Batman, so I need to... And it's just like, I know you're the fucking Batman, bros.
Yeah, it was minimal, and I appreciate it was minimal, and I do think that was Zdarsky, like, I can do so much, I can't bear to do meaningless, like, expositional narration dialogue. There was one part where he's talking to himself in a crime scene, and I was literally about to be like, what is this? And he's like, end of voice memo. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, you got me.
It's diegetic.
I will accept it. It makes sense in the moment.
Yeah. But, and again, I think, and this is unfortunately my take on this stuff, is that I don't want to do any more Batman or Spider-Man on this show.
You've had your fill?
Well, I just don't think it's that interesting, unfortunately. That's the issue. The thing that's interesting to me is the subculture that surrounds it, and I'm more interested in the reasons for it not changing and the responses of the people who consume this media than I am in talking about it. Because we've dedicated 5 minutes to the story of this comic book and pretty much given you an accurate enough overview that you could tell us beat by beat what happens in it.
Yeah, for me, there was too much happening that none of it felt significant.
Yeah.
There's a whole subplot about possibly Bruce having a long-lost sibling.
Yeah.
And his dad might have cheated and stuff.
Yeah.
That was a plot line from The Batman. About, like, not infidelity, but, like, just the idea of, like, your parents weren't the perfect people who you thought they were, kind of thing. And again, that's, like, 1/10 of like this overall story that's happening.
There's not enough spaces dedicated to it. I could read a whole run of that.
Yeah, this is my main complaint about this, is it puts too much in and none of it really resonates.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest problem with this kind of main style. There's a third act reveal so the Court of Owls are an antagonist in this, but they represented the point of the Court of Owls
So is this an existing Batman thing?
Yes. So the Court of Owls was meant to be, and this was really great when they were brought in. This was like in the mid tens, I think, maybe even late noughties. But
we don't have a good way of describing those 2010 to 2019 years. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's the only thing we've got.
Because
the teens.
Because in the 20th century, those are the pre-war, war, and interwar years. So we have a name for them. But yeah, like I don't like the tweenies. I don't like the teenies. Like I like the noughties. I mean, I think this is unfortunately just going to be the 20s again.
Oh yeah, of course.
But we don't have a good name for it yet, do we?
Just 20s, isn't it? I mean, nothing.
No, for the 2010 to 2019.
Right. So potentially back in the tweenies. The tweenies. But the point of the Court of Owls is they're meant to be they were an interesting villain when they first won because there's no singular face of them. They are basically Gotham's Illuminati, Freemasons type, the rich, the elite who have these secret meetings where they all wear these masks and they decide the fate of Gotham, basically. And they have these characters called Talons who are like brainwashed fighters who kind of do the fighting aspect for them.
Yeah.
But now
do their bidding.
Yeah, exactly. And now even here you've got here's one guy and he represents the Court of Owls now.
Yeah.
So immediately there I'm like, well, you're kind of defeating the purpose of this, what made this new antagonist like interesting. Then the third act reveal is he's Russian. He's not just Russian. He represents Russia as a country.
Yeah.
They used Nigma's thing to get bloody nuke codes.
Yeah.
And he's trying to get them back to Russia to maybe start World War III.
Yeah.
That felt so out of left field, even though the seeds were planted.
Yeah.
But when it all happened, I was like, we've just done all this stuff. Like we've just done all this billionaire oligarchical stuff and framing Jim Gordon for murder of a mayor and
pick a thing.
Exactly.
Pick a fucking thing.
It literally got to the point where Batman's like, I've got to get the codes and prevent World War III. And I was like, weren't you investigating a murder? Like yesterday? Like in your time?
Earlier on this morning.
Exactly. And I was like,
it's a weird work day, Bruce.
It's all this is to say, like, I agree with you that there's not much to say in the content of the story.
Yeah.
But the faults and the why it doesn't work is what I find fascinating.
Okay, let's go there then.
So, and that's what I'm saying. The fact that, again, we were having this moment when Batman's like investigating the crime scene. I'm like, this is good Batman. Like, I think everyone likes Batman. We in the films, we never saw enough of him being the detective.
And that's what
the Batman.
That's what the Batman sort of brought to it, isn't it? And that's why that was really highly critically acclaimed, wasn't it?
It was like a lot of people consider like the best since The Dark Knight, and some people, myself included, struggled to pick the best out of those. But yeah, it was Detective Batman, which we haven't seen almost, like the closest we got to it was in Dark Knight when he was doing that thing where he's like firing bullets into the cement and like recreating the bullet and stuff. But even that's just like, just get the technology through it.
Yeah.
Proper Detective Batman's like going to crime scenes, going through in the dark, the files, finding a clue, taking it back, analyzing. It's like, oh, this leads me here, and now I've got to investigate this thing. So it was a bit of that, which was good. But to jump from that to, gotta prevent World War III, and I was like, that's such a tonal shift. And now he's fighting this patriotic guy, evil Captain America, but the DC version, and he's Russian instead, and
which is just Captain America from the 90s, isn't it, when he was a Hydra agent?
Yeah. So if you've listened to this episode and you were hoping for a beat by beat, like play by play of wasn't it good when this part happened, or I didn't like when this part happened, it just, none of it resonated enough for me to care about any actual plot moments. What's far more interesting is why it doesn't work, and the fact that it's come from a great writer in Zdarsky.
I think something that I realized while I was reading this comic is that I really enjoy the mythos of Batman in the wider DC universe.
Yeah.
So I really love it when you're reading another DC comic and people start talking about Batman. Human Target is the best example.
That's fantastic, yeah.
So Human Target, what's his name?
Christopher Chance.
Christopher Chance,
I think,
is driving and he's running, and we don't know what he's running from, and then he starts talking about Batman.
I don't think he even says Batman for
no,
ages.
He says him.
Yeah. Because why would he say in his own head? Like, he knows who he's talking about.
And, Batman is this almost omniscient and omnipresent force in the DC universe where everyone knows not to fuck with Bruce.
And the fact that he's he just assumes he's after him, even though he sees zero evidence.
Yeah.
He just assumed they'll find this thing and he will come after me.
And so Batman kind of becomes almost like a metaphor for God.
Yeah.
In the wider DC universe. But of course, in Batman's own story runs, he can't just be a presence. He has to be a real character with real challenges and real antagonists.
Yep.
And so suddenly, by getting a closer look at it all, you strip away the mythos and everything that makes him such a powerful force and symbol in the wider DC universe. And you're left with a guy just kind of bumbling around, looking at a crime scene, trying to stop World War III in the afternoon. It just all becomes a bit like, it just loses all of its power.
Yeah.
I would love to live in a world where somebody at DC just sits down and goes, we need to stop doing Batman and Superman for a few years.
Yeah, look, let's turn off the money machine.
But imagine how incredible it would be.
From a creative and artistic standpoint, 100%.
And
but it's never going to happen.
I think the thing is, at a certain point, this shit is going to stop printing money.
Maybe, but again, it's been like this for years, and I mean decades in the grand scheme of things, with occasional bits where it was really good.
Yeah.
And even just if you zoom in, for me, it's been like this since Tom King left. Like, it's just been this kind of like, let's just keep it going, like almost a decade.
I mean, you were a different human being when you read that Tom King run.
Yeah.
Like, people have time to age through different phases in their adult lives with there not being any great Batman.
Yeah. I think,
isn't that wild?
I think the problem is that a lot of these bigger characters and titles are propped up by people who just love the character and get everything to do with them. I mean, and the Amazing Spider-Man was still selling quite highly.
Yeah.
And that was renowned for being awful.
Yeah.
Like the worst. And it was still like a top seller because people just will buy whatever title, like not even whatever title, because both Spider-Man and Batman have multiple titles.
Yeah.
Even their other ones don't show up on like best, like top sellers or anything. The mainline titles do, because people like, I need to stay. Like, I've been like that before. I'm like, I need to keep reading. Like, even if I'm not enjoying it, like, I still want to know what's happening in this line. Like,
so is this mainline Batman at the moment?
Yeah, this is the Batman title, which again, why I thought was interesting to do it.
Yeah,
just to see what the state of modern comics are. Maybe that might be the title of this episode: is Batman hyphen this and the state of modern superhero comics.
Yeah, because I just think it's in. Again, I have really conflicted feelings about it because some of the recent superhero stuff we've read have been some of the best comics that I've read, full stop.
Yes. But also I've cherry picked. And to be fair, those are some of the other top sellers as well.
Yeah.
Like Ultimate Universe has been selling really well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head what other ones. The X-Men Krakoa era that I've been raving about.
Yeah.
That was great when that was coming out.
That's done now though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just ended?
Yeah. Like last year.
Yeah.
So it's the new ones have been going for a while. And I have not brought myself to actually read them because all of them say like, from the ashes, rise this new X-Men. I'm like, give me the ashes. Like, I love the ashes.
The
like,
ashes
that was
were great.
But I tell you what's apparently, and I think we'll do this next week, what apparently has been really good, people are saying, is Absolute Wonder Woman. People are saying it's the best of the
I'm ready for
Absolute
some
titles.
good Wonder Woman. I've not really read any particularly.
We read the first issue of it when we did the first of the big three. But let's see what it's like issue 6 now. So let's see how that kind of first arc
how that's going on.
Exactly.
Because I don't know, how do you actually feel about like big two comics at the moment? Because you consume more of it than I do.
I mean, I consume less now than ever because I think just because, I mean, we're all busier now, like our age and stuff. And it's just, it got to a point where I just stopped reading a bunch of stuff because I was like, oh, I'm not actually enjoying it. And I'm at a point now where, like, I like reading stuff and criticizing it and doing it for this podcast, but anything for my own time, I need to enjoy it.
So what, like, in terms of comics, what do you read for pleasure outside the podcast now? Do you read anything for pleasure at the moment outside the podcast?
I not as much as I used to, but I still try and dip in every once in a while. The last thing I think I really enjoyed that was an ongoing thing was the last Fantastic Four run.
Yeah.
That's been really fun. Like, not groundbreaking, but like really interesting. Like just interesting and fun. We might do it on the lead up to Fantastic Four because it'd be good to have done the first series and then like where it is now.
Yeah.
But there was like a great little. God, there was this great little story run. There's like only 2 or 3 issues long, and it was about how someone had made an app that everyone was using, and it was like kind of like doing favors for each other and points and stuff. And then they realized that everyone using this app in the world, not everyone, but like enough people, they'd inadvertently created a brain because it was like a cell of a brain, and all the information passing between them. So there was this AI consciousness that was like operating across his brain, and it kind of preempted that Reed was going to try and shut it down. So it fought against it, not in any kind of like fighting way, just as like a ethereal AI brain kind of thing,
as a sentient being that wants to continue being sentient.
And then the way that Reed fought against it was he made a competing app, so it reduced the number of users, and this AI entity got dumber because it was losing cells that was happening. And then they were like, and then Reed was like, oh shit, like I don't want to kill it, like because they then have a dialogue because once it stops being able to try to murder them, whatever it's doing. And it was that realization of like, oh, I thought you were trying to kill me. It's like, oh, we thought you were trying to kill us. Like, oh. And then Reed's like, oh shit, what do I do? And then they kind of have to deal with the fact that they've killed this sentient life that was created out of nowhere, the first of its kind. And that was like 2 or 3 issues, and it was interesting. Like, and that's that Fantastic Four run is going on right now, written by Ryan North, I think. But yeah, like that's been really good. Other than that, just the Ultimate stuff, I think, is the main thing, and most of that I read for the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we've read a good chunk of it, but both of us have done it for this, haven't we?
Yeah. My fear is that with the state of modern comics, I think, like, I like criticizing stuff as long as it's interesting. Like, it doesn't even have to be good or great, as long as it's something interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
But I think we're probably this year going to be doing just a lot more older stuff, and
that's always quite interesting for us. I don't know. Is it interesting for you, person whose ears I currently inhabit? Is that interesting for you?
Let us know at comicglitter@gmail.com. Write in and let us know. That was relevant.
No, absolutely. That's kind of where I was driving with that, because I'm always really interested as to who our listeners are, because you're a comic book person, but you're not that deep into it.
I mean, I'm quite deep. I just don't spend as much of my time.
I mean, there are people where this is their sole outlet, right? This is like the creative thing that they consume. And so are we finding those people, or are we finding people who are more like you, who are like, casual comic book consumers, or are we finding people like me who don't really know much about comic books but are interested in the medium?
Yeah.
Like, I'd be really intrigued by that, because again, one of the things that you find when you make a podcast is that don't get the immediate feedback that you get when you make online video.
I'll tell you what was interesting. I saw an interesting thing about comic sales. Some of DC's most successful comics they released in the past year or few months was this line of comics where it was DC's biggest comics they've ever done. So it's like Watchmen, Killing Joke, all the ones that, not just Alan Moore, but all the big ones they own. But what they did was they re-released them in a kind of more book format.
Oh, okay.
Rather than the big, so like literally shaped like a traditional book rather than like a comic
more
book.
Like a manga.
Exactly. And that sold gangbusters. Apparently that was more than their combined other titles releasing right now.
Looks nicer on a bookshelf.
Yeah. And on the one hand, I was like, that's good because people are buying and reading comics still. But on the other side, I was like, you've taken like your 10 best comics from like the past 40 years and been like, here they are in a new format. Like people are going to be, so there's loads of people going to be like, oh, Watchmen, I've heard a lot about that, and here's a new release of it, and I'll buy it.
That is what Nintendo do every couple of years.
Yeah.
They give you a way to buy their old games on their new platform, knowing that you're not going to be able to move them across to the next platform, and they get to do it again.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's unfortunately a cynical way to resell old products to you.
True. But the difference is whenever I hear stuff like that with comics, I'm like, oh, good, people are buying and reading comics. Like, even if they are like the best of the best only, like if it inspires them to get more into the medium as itself, then that's all good stuff, And one thing we will end on, which I think was good, was a little comment from the comment corner Not from Superfan this
From
time.
Leon?
No, not from Leon this time. Someone commented.
Is it a new commenter?
It's a new commenter. Someone commented on, oddly enough, the Amazing Spider-Man video we did.
Yeah.
And I'll split theirs up into two halves.
Okay.
Right? So the first half says, "My God, this entire run is trash." So agreed with more your side of that, right? And then they said, "But listening to you two spelled T-O-O,
Nice.
you two ramble about it pointlessly, pretending like there's anything good or entertaining in it is mind-numbing." And I was so tempted to be like, did you, like, Jamie hated it.
Jamie
was the one.
Jamie was spitting angry the entire time.
Yeah, perfectly justifiable criticism for me. Like, that definitely applies to me. But I was always wanting to defend your honor, to be like, he thought it was shite. Like, I was the one who was being in the wrong here. But I did reply, because I thought, it's only... I heard this comment, and then I just replied, I said, "You two, T-O-O apostrophe."
Nice, nice. Well done.
And then, "Thanks for listening. New episodes every Monday."
Nice. Love it.
I thought you'd appreciate the grammatical correction.
But the subtle grammatical correction?
Yeah.
You didn't correct his grammar, you just used correct grammar in response.
Oh, I put the apostrophe, so that's like the correction symbol, isn't it? So, but just helping out, like, just make sure they know the mistake they've made, and just not jumping on them for it. Just letting them know it's a mistake, and thanks for listening.
You did a public service there, and you did the Lord's work, Ryan.
And in a way, what we do is a public service.
Well, it needs to be something, doesn't it?
Yes, but something's better than nothing. But I think we've got a couple of interesting weeks coming up. I've got a really interesting one for when the Thunderbolts comes out, like a title to
Thunderbolts?
do. Thunderbolts is basically MCU's version of the Suicide Squad, like bad guys teaming up and working for the government kind of thing.
What's his face? He just cheated on Lily Allen in it.
Bucky Barnes?
No. Oh God, he was in Stranger Things as well.
Oh, the bearded guy.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but David Harbour.
David Harbour had a 3-year affair with a makeup artist. He cheated on Lily Allen. She's a fucking icon.
Whoa. I mean, all celebrities they're all bloody root rats, aren't they?
Well, clearly David Harbour is, because he was punching. He was punching so far above his weight.
I mean, we found out about Dave Grohl. No, it could be any of them, couldn't it?
Oh, yeah, that made me so sad, because Dave Grohl always struck me as such a nice dude.
He was very nice, apparently.
Yeah, maybe a bit too nice.
Exactly, that's the problem. All right, so at the end of the episode, and in a minute you'll hear my recorded bit at the end.
Because I finally bullied Ryan to the extent he doesn't do them in my presence anymore.
But just in case you did want to leave us a review.
No, fuck off.
Well, say bye and then let the record play.
Thank you, bye.
And thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to get notified of our future episodes as well. And if you're feeling particularly generous, then please leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're using. If you'd like to get in contact with us, then send an email to comiclit@gmail.com. You can also watch videos by me on the Comic Stand YouTube page, which is linked in the description. Thank you, goodbye.